Welcome back, guys. So we've had 24 hours for this paint to cure off, and I've taken a very old polishing sponge and just gently polished the paint surface just to get rid of a few imperfections and bring a bit of smoothness back to the paint. And I think what we can see here now is that yes, we've still got a really heavily mottled paint finish. We've got some quite nice definition of the stringers here, but there has been a bit of substance on or in the paint that's come away, so we've got a few dark spots. But now that the paint's dried off, I think you can see that the pre-shading and mottling is still quite stark. So this is the beauty of taking it step by step, is we can actually come back in and apply some more layers of paint just to knock it back a little bit, make it a little bit more subdued, and keeping it more in scale. So I'm not using the big airbrush today. I'm just going to use my Gaahleri Mobius 0.3. Same white paint, our insignia white we mixed up yesterday. We've used a lot of that paint actually. You know, looking at this, you can see how much of the pot's been used. It's quite significant. But what I'm going to do is put a little bit more thinners in the pot. It'll help eke it out a bit, but it'll also make it go through the airbrush a little bit better, and it'll reduce the risk of oversaturation of colour and removing the pre-shading altogether, because we don't want that. We want to keep some of that tonal variation that we've managed to build up, and we worked hard to build up because it was a slog painting this thing. It's a big aircraft, big model. So round 2 on the insignia white. So you can see where I've gone a bit too much with the sand and stick, so let's just start with those areas first. We'll put them back in. There we go. If we want, we can concentrate on the stringers just to highlight them a bit more maybe, and look for any that haven't got the highlights that the rest of them have, and we can go back in and add some more highlights in. Now, the main areas are here on these main wing panels. So what we want to do is just gently come in and lay down that nice thin layer of white to help blend back the pre-shading that's still looking a little stark. If you want, you can pick out individual panels. There we go. Just along the leading edge of the wings, we need to make sure we get all sides of these radar antennas as well, because I had noticed that there were still some areas that really weren't hardly painted at all on them. So we're just going to work our way around this model, layering up the colour until we get to a point where we're happy with the level of colour saturation versus the level of pre-shade showing through. So I think you can see on this wing already that we're lifting the opacity up and the saturation up. compared to the other wing. But we can also use this to our advantage where it comes to areas around the engine where we're going to have oil leaks, prop wash, and stuff running over the wing. So we might actually want to leave those areas more darker, more unsaturated, purely because we're going to weather them up a little harder. If you take this wing here and compare it to this wing here, you can see the difference. I'll just zoom out a little bit. There we go. So you can see the difference straight away. To just a few more thin coats of paint really makes a lot. Excuse me. We've got the floats to think of as well. They need to be in keeping with the airframe. So we can just hold them and just layer in that paint. It doesn't take much to bring them up to the same level of opacity. There we go. And like I said, when we get down to doing the actual weathering, that will actually make the white look whiter, if that makes sense. Right, so I'm going to go over and just do a light second coat over the whole of this airframe, and then we'll come back and see when it's done. Right, and we're back, and I'm a lot more happier now with the level of finish on the aircraft. I think you'll agree that we've toned down the pre-shading just a little bit. It's made it more mottled than it has been the Stark before. We've gone over the whole airframe, highlighted a few more ribs. There's a bit of white spot in here and there, which I couldn't get out, unfortunately. But I hope you'll agree with me that too far there, sorry. There we go. I hope you'll agree with me that the overall finish on the aircraft is really rather nice, and it really sets us up nicely for thinking about the camouflage colours. Now, straight away you can see, obviously, where, if I zoom out properly, you'll see it all. There we go, you'll see where the whole camouflage has to be laid. So we've got the upper tail surfaces, the whole upper wing surface, the front and the midsection fuselage. And I am intending on spraying it absolutely freehand, though we may have to mask up one or two areas just to protect it from overspray. So the likes of underneath the horizontal stabilizers, trailing edge of the wing maybe. We'll see. But we've got a good demarcation, or a good idea where we're going to start the camouflage. Now, the camouflage color is XF77 and XF65. So XF77 is IGN grey. That's a good match to RAF Dark Sea Grey. The other one you could think to use would be XF, if I can find it. I had it. Typical, when you want something you can never find it. Well, if you wanted a slightly lighter version, we've got XS75, which is IJN grey. This is from the Cure arsenal, and the 77 is from the Seizibo arsenal. Sorry, I really do apologise if I've killed the enunciation there. I did have another grey that I was going to suggest, but for the life of me I can't find it. So obviously it wasn't worth keeping. So anyway, waffling a bit there. These are the two colours we're going to use on the top coat. Obviously I'm going to go for the green first, or the slate grey first, and then we'll come back in and use the darker colour to tie it all together. So give me a moment, I need to get my references to figure out where we're going to put the demarcation lines, and then we can come back in and think about start spraying some of this camo cotton colour. So there we are. White underside's done, so the next job is to think about camouflage colours. Now originally I said I was going to use XF77 IJN grey from the Sasebo Arsenal, I apologise for the pronunciation, and XF65 field grey for the slate grey green. Another colour that has come to mind is XF24 dark grey, another really nice colour, and it is darker than the 77, so I may actually use this and use the 77 to do post shading and highlighting, but that we'll just have to see how we get along. Now with regard to masking up, there may be areas I'll need to mask, likes of the tail, the underside of the horizontal stabilizers, just to protect from overspray, but I'm actually hoping that I can paint most of this in freehand camo. Now I do have reference photographs. I'll just grab my iPad, and there's actually quite a good picture from a 210 Squadron Catalina, and it also highlights the differences in the kit compared to the real aircraft. So this is a 210 Squadron aircraft, and if we look specifically here at the rear demarcation, it is a hard edge demarcation, but also it shows you that these rear blisters are completely oversized compared to the real life ones, because of the demarcation line comes a lot further up the side, and that there appears to be quite a bigger gap here between the two blisters that this gentleman is lying on. So if we look at the aircraft kit itself, if I can get it turned on its side without knocking the camera, which I should be able to do now I've got my new stand in. So you can see here that I'm not able, in order to maintain the demarcation line here, I'm not able to move the paint up higher up on the side where it was in the photograph. So just another indicator that these blisters are completely oversized. It is what it is, we're going to have to live with it. But I'm actually quite confident that I can get a reasonably hard edge camo in here without masking, he says. Worst comes to the worst, we can always mask off the retouch in the white, and we could actually touch it in with just standard gloss white to get a little bit of tonal variation back, or we can make up another pot of insignia white, because to be fair, I've pretty much finished that first pot to paint the hole underneath of this. It shows you how big the aircraft is. So that's quite a bit of waffling on my part. I think what I need to do is get this paints mixed up, and look at the references for where we're going to start putting down the slate grey green, and then actually get some paint demarked on the aircraft to show where the camo is going to be. So give me a couple of minutes, we'll come back and we'll start the camo. Right, we're back and we're going to give it a go. Now I'm not sure how I'm going to actually position this aircraft that it's going to be in a sensible position to paint. Ideally I would like to get the tail up a little bit, but I might need to find something to set it on. Right, let's see if this will do it. Two bottles of Sansador here that are the same height, and they may actually work quite nicely for a tail stand. Right, there we go. So I've got a bit more of a stand, I can see the wing a bit better. So looking at my reference photograph, I'll start painting. So as you see, starting by tracing out the edges of the camo, and then we're going to go back in similar to we did with the white. We're going to highlight the high points of the ribbing. We're going to highlight the demarcation between the panels. We've got a stringer there, this piece here. And then what we can do is come in and we'll actually highlight the rivet lines. Right, and it doesn't matter if we don't get this 100% right. All we need to do is block in the areas we want this colour, and then we can come back in and put a really tight line in once we've painted the dark grey, and we can use the two colours to help sharpen up each other, because they're both quite dark colours, so they'll cover each other reasonably well. And in reality, we are really guessing at these colours because there's no photo references of the actual aircraft. So we are using our imagination somewhat to come up with this camouflage scheme. But there are enough photographs of Catalinas painted in camouflage that you can imagine just roughly what the engineers, flight engineers and ground crew did to camouflage their aircraft and break up the pattern. And again, this is really, really good practice for anyone wanting to pick up airbrushing, to practice your brush control, your finger control on the trigger, paint flow. And it really helps you get an idea of what an airbrush can do. Right, so we could sit and look at this for the next hour, because it's probably going to take me an hour more to do all this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this camouflage laid down. Once I've laid the patterns out, blocked in the panel lines and that, I'm probably going to come back in. We'll do a little bit of mottling, as we did before, just to kind of vary the tone, that little marbling effect. And then when we've done that, we'll come in and we'll actually block in the colour. Just the same as you see me do on the white, except it's slate grey green. So very, very nice thin mist coats. Moving evenly over the surface, so we're not putting too much paint down in any one particular area, and then we'll end up with a nice tonal paint finish like that. So I'm going to crack on and do this, and we'll come back once I've gotten all this done. Alright, we're back, and as you can see, we've got the first layer of camouflage on. I'm quite happy with that, actually. There's going to be some touching up around the front cockpit area, purely because I think the demarcation line I originally painted on with the white is a little bit off. That's no problem, because there's also a little bit of overspray that needs to be touched in. But now we've got this grey-green, sort of slate grey-green down, we can look at putting on the dark grey. And for that, I am dark sea grey. I'm going to go for XF24 to start with, because it's just that little bit darker than the XF77. So I'm going to quickly clean out the airbrush, and then we'll come back and we'll look at getting the dark grey on.